Welcome to L&D Disrupt, the podcast dedicated to helping you overcome workplace challenges and prepare for the future of work today. I'm your host, Nelson Sivalingam, and I'll be speaking with the movers, shakers, and path breakers in L&D who are reshaping their organizations right now. Join us each week as we delve into the highs and lows of work in the industry to get to the real nitty-gritty stuff that you actually care about. In today's episode of L&D Disrupt, we're joined by Sara Frasi, Senior People Partner for Learning and Development at Native Instruments. Throughout this conversation, we explore how to support employees to become autonomous learners. Stay tuned to hear Sara and I delve into topics from learning budgets and time blocking, right through to empowering employees to own their development. Sara, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nelson.
I'm really excited to have this chat. And obviously today we're going to be talking about how we support employees to kind of really become autonomous learners. And I guess taking a step back, I mean, today organizations we see is still kind of adopting top-down kind of approach to learning where the kind of leadership decides and push learning out. Yes. I guess the first question is, why is it important to have a bottom-up approach where employees own their own learning and development?
So I think there are multiple answers to this question. The first one is we are talking about adults. People are into a company, they decided to make their career, they decide in the direction that they want to grow, what is important for them. So I think that we need to go away from the mindset of university, right? Someone is telling you what you need to learn.
Yeah.
I think that also within the same organization, we can have very different functions. So if I agree on the part that there are some topics that could be valuable for the entire organization and the organization needs to give some support or some guidelines, on the other hand, most probably the needs of our colleagues that are in finance are very different from our colleagues in engineering.
Right.
So we need to be able to have the flexibility or the tools to support those different needs as well. And we also have people at very different stages in their own career. For some of them, growing means going through a formal training. For others who are already expert means to, attend a conference with other experts.
Right.
So there is not a standard that fits all. And if we try to reduce to a standard fits all, we are losing a lot of opportunity and we disengage with our learner.
So what do you do in a situation where you've got an organization that has historically done top-down approach and it's all been about push learning? How do you go about changing that mindset to start with, that, it's okay to have employees own this? How do you start that kind of change process?
Also here, I think there are a few aspects. It's not something that, first of all, it's not something that happens overnight. So we will never going to change a behavior or a mindset overnight. But usually in the organization, there is always someone who is more open to this change and maybe was asking for this kind of change. Right. So I would say, let's start with a pilot. Let's measure success. Let's also looking outside. Leaders are more often open to listen to numbers, to benchmarks, to best practice. So in different ways, let's start building a case. I think that also there are some partners that are less visible, like our colleagues in talent acquisition, who can help us building this case. They can help us because they see a value on internal mobility, because They see the challenge in hiring and retaining, and giving people access to development resources. It's crucial now more than ever. So it takes time. Find someone who is willing to jump into a pilot and build a case with internal results as well with external benchmarks.
I guess there's two people to convince here, right? One is the business and showing them the numbers and building the business case for it. But often where we also see a challenge is changing the mindset of the employees, right? If up until now they've been used to just being told what to learn, now almost having to take ownership over what they need to learn and being empowered to do so. What have you seen works in that process? How do you get employees to start looking at L&D in a different way within their organization?
I think that this is really something that we need have their manager support coming in. We need to have managers being able to hold development conversation, ask the right questions, and also create and giving the space for learning and development. So I guess that in this case, those are crucial because they are also the role model. The senior leadership could do something as role modeling, but then your manager sitting next to you and having sometimes a never a proper development conversation that is not just well done or you need to improve this. I think that this could be very, very, very powerful. And again, we are not going to onboard everyone, right? There are people who are not interested or not interested at that time. It's something that people need to also feel that is valuable, and it could take time. Again, we can have some best practice and someone who was really excited about personal development action, then sharing back.
Right.
So
just kind of diving into that a bit more, Sara, what does a good manager conversation look and sound like?
Yes, so that's a very, very good question, and there is not an easy. It's not an easy answer. I think that is a question that goes beyond the performances. So it's not just how you perform or how you should perform, but it's also being able to have a manager looking a little bit more strategic. What are the skills that this person can gain and help this person in their career, not only in their actual role and within my team, but overall. So, and being also able not to give all the answer, but to give the person the time to reflect on those. So I think that first and foremost is asking good question and give a little bit of time for reflection, and go back to this and making a plan together, a plan that can be followed up, that is measurable. I think that this would be very, very powerful.
Yeah. And what do you think L&D can do to get managers more involved, right? Because the common theme is everyone's busy, managers are busy, and we've all got work to do. And so it's almost L&D seem like an additional thing to do rather than a lever to actually increase the productivity of their own team. And so often what we see is L&D is very siloed to what managers are doing. And often managers are sometimes doing their own training that L&D are not aware of. And so how do you really get managers involved in that process?
I feel that L&D should be a partner. So be there when there is a need and trying to support their managers. It's not silos, is not living on a cloud that is disconnected from the business. I think that also L&D, when talks with managers, should stop talking about what training do you need, but it's more what you're trying to achieve within your team and your organization. What are the blockers, and here is how can I support you. So if you're becoming a partner and you give concrete solution to challenges that they are facing and the team is facing, they are more willing to take the risk of trying something new and giving the time. So I think that should be like a true partnership, and working together, and also creating some kind of guidelines for them that is not just a set of rules that they need to follow verbatim, but it's more, hey, this is how it should look like. This is some suggestion that I'm giving. It's not just, have a development conversation, but give them some material, and also helping them become a community of leaders so they can talk and discuss between each other. It's not just L&D telling you this, but L&D is there to enable those conversations between leaders so they can learn and share from each other as well.
And in your experience, Sara, what are some of the, good examples of empowering employees to own their development that you've seen, right? What are good ways to start that practice?
So I guess that we have always the constraint, what is seen as a constraint of the budget.
Right.
People don't know what they can ask, to which extent, what type of format. So I think that a very basic, understandable, accessible, easy to use guideline can be very powerful.
Right.
Hey, this is how we see development in the organization. We see that you should have resources. We imagine those kind of resources, and you can access in this way. Right. So we give some guidelines without going into the details that are limiting. We make the process to access those fundings easy. Right. And not a red tape. I need to fill 27 forms and get a bazillion of approvals. That's something that people feel uncomfortable or could feel uncomfortable. So I guess that this could be a very good starting point, because you put it out there, it's visible for everyone, and we say, hey, talk with your managers. Yeah. So they can also refer back to something that is there and say, hey, I saw this guideline, can we have this conversation? And then starting with these sparks. The other aspect, sorry.
No, just on that, Sara, about the budget, because it's an interesting one. In How Now, we have a way of managing your budget and your learning request approvals. And often when we speak about this, there is still a hesitance to openly discuss a budget, or to say, here's the learning budget, guys, go find what you need and submit the request. It's almost like we need to keep this budget. If everyone, as much as they want people to use it, we often sense this kind of hesitation that if they knew this budget existed, then they would use it all, right? And it's fine. Yeah. Have you found that? Like, do you see that from maybe other organizations or people you knew in the L&D community, where there's this sentiment around how open do we be about the budget and how much freedom do we give the employees around what they need to learn?
Yes. I think that, giving a budget, this is a conversation that needs to happen also on what is sustainable for an organization, to define a number. What your competitors are doing, what is the market, and also how much it costs to attend to conferences and training, to provide a number that is reasonable and makes sense. As I said before, there are teams, in my experience this was clearly set up. Right. It was a number, it was a flat number, it was clear for everyone how to do it. Still, the usage in some teams was higher respect to others. Right. And that was the moment where we had conversation with the leaders and the people partners, say, hey, why this is not used? What are the challenges? Is the process not clear? Are people struggling in asking, even if it's open? Are managers too cautious? So I think that, it's not going always to land everywhere in the same way, but we should be very, very explicit. It should be something that people go and ask. In my previous role, I was in a fintech company here in Berlin. At some point, we were also thinking, should we put a budget, or should we say have a meaningful conversation and we figure it out the way? Right. And then we made some research, and it pops out like for companies who implemented the unlimited vacation policy, that people were taking less holidays instead of more. So we said, okay, let's put a number. But let's also be open to look at case by case. If there is something that goes over that number but makes sense, and we see a return of expectation that is very strong, we can accommodate that. Right. So the crucial part is more around the conversation, and then we'll figure it out together, the resources. But resources open up there, they're giving people a little bit more comfort in asking. Right. And how do you, I guess, the $1 million question, the return on investment, right? Which is you've got this budget, and now it's not necessarily top down. People are picking the conferences, workshops, things that they think are going to be useful for them. How do you then determine, was it useful and was it the right way to spend that budget? there is always a risk there, right? And I think that they pick it up, but this doesn't take away the conversation with the manager. It's around how I'm going to apply the knowledge, how I'm going to share this knowledge with my team. What does it mean for my growth? What is the expectation of things that are going to be done differently? So those are conversations that needs to happen before. So I think that this is very, very strong. And then it takes a little bit of time to measure. Right. On the long run, we can see are people using this more between the ones who are going through lateral move or promotion, right, or are we retaining those people within the organization? So I think that the metrics are different, and then each team, each individual is going to see what's the impact. There were an improvement on efficiency, a new innovative idea, right, a qualitative change. That's what matters. I think that, again, it's very important that the conversation that happens before and deciding together how success will look like or what we should expect seeing change. And it's not just, okay, just go to the conference, just go to the training because it's nice.
And what's your process there, Sara, for gathering that information? Do you typically schedule regular conversations to speak with the different leaders and different people in the team to gather that information?
So I think that there are a couple of aspects. The first one is the regular touch base with the leaders and the people partners, who are also very key because they listen both to the leaders and to everyone in the teams on how it's going, what are the needs, and having this regular check-in. It's nice. For me, it's also nice on an aggregated version to see how people are spending this budget. Can I see some trends in terms of topic? Can I see some trends in terms of area? And this is also guiding me to look at what's next. If I see a lot of people going, let's make an example on training on effective communication. Hey, maybe this is a need that we should centralize because there is a big appetite. Or do I see, as I said before, some teams using fully the budget and some others not using it? How should I support this? So there is also this aggregated way to look at data, because I cannot be there and I don't want to be there in every conversation. For me, it's more seeing what are the trends and what should I improve to support this development and growth.
And what kind of organizational culture, Sara, do you think you need to support autonomous learners?
I think that if we want a learning environment, it should be an organization that values new ideas, that it's open also to try and learn from success as well as from mistakes. Right. And they also are seeing their people as their main resource. So if you see your people as the main resource that you have, I think that you are willing and open to make this investment. And I guess the other aspect is around do we want to be a future-ready organization? I think that you need to look this really as an investment and see, okay, maybe I don't see it now, but I'm getting ready. My people are getting ready for what's coming next. And also it requires an organization that is very much aware of the fast-paced environment where we live. And if your teams, your colleagues are not ready, equipped, you are not setting them up for success. And as well, your organization is not set up for success.
Have you don't obviously have to name any companies, but have you ever worked in an organization where that hasn't been the culture and you've had to work towards changing that culture in order to get to the point where you can have self-directed learners?
I guess there are more traditional organizations, maybe very big ones. I had an experience in the past where, access to learning was not that easy.
Right.
There were some budget, but yeah, we were getting a number and the rationale behind. So it was left to the managers, but what's the rationale behind this
Right.
number? Is everyone getting the same amount? Was a little bit unclear. Yeah, I think, and there was a lot of focus on leaders and a little bit less on experts, but the organization is made with a lot of experts as well. So in that case, I think that was a more traditional approach, or let's say old school. But yes, I face it, and this requires a lot of time, and I would say also a lot of creativity,
Right.
for who is getting the budget and the manager to figure it out with whatever it's there, how we can make the best out of it.
And to support kind of this self-directed learning in terms of the content and the learning resources, right? From what you're saying with the learning budget, it seems like often it's external resources that already exist, and you're not necessarily having to allocate your internal resources on creating content. So is it a fair assumption to say, an important part of supporting self-directed learning is not actually creating content, but actually curating resources that are going to be useful for the people? Is that a fair assumption?
Yes, I think that it's a fair assumption, especially when the L&D team is very lean. This idea of curating quality content, it's very powerful. And then the job is how we make it relevant. So adding an extra layer that could be explaining why this is important, explaining what is important for them and the organization, or having the part that is more theory heavy, done by curated content, and then facilitate more exchanging and reflection and workshop. I think that this could be very, very powerful. Also because we cannot imagine that in any L&D team we have experts on all the areas. And also the other big challenge is that more and more we have teams that are geographically dispersed. Time, it's always a constraint. So personally, I prefer whatever I can to curate content and putting into a program and the lens of why this is important for you and for the company, and then spend the time with them reflecting or working together or sharing, more than me explaining concept for 45 minutes, 1 hour. I don't think that this is the best use of my time and their time with their colleagues into a virtual room.
And do you think it's necessary to kind of ring fence a specific amount of time for employees to be able to learn? Like, give them an hour a week. Do you think it's necessary to have that dedicated time slot for people to learn?
That's a very good question that I'm on a cycle basis. I'm always coming back because time seems to be the ultimate constraint right now. So can we say, yes, every week block this on your calendar? Does it work? I'm thinking also for myself as a learner, does it work for me? Can I say that every Thursday at 3 I'm in the right mindset to learn? And no, that's not the case. So I think that it's a nice idea if it works for you. I think that is more around again, going back to those conversations with the managers and the manager themselves saying, hey, I'm taking this hour off, or I did this, and finding the best way. I don't feel that blocking one spot could work for everyone. If it works perfectly, just do it, block your calendar, that's great. But I'm not sure that is the answer for everyone, right? It's not always that every Thursday I want and I need to learn something. Maybe I need to learn something on different dates in a specific month, and I really need it to gain that skills, and I'm dedicating 3-4 days, whatever it's needed. And then for 6 months, I'm just reading and doing other things or not learning something new at all, because I also need to practice what I learn. So it's not always constant learning. You need to have the space to practice and apply as well.
Yeah, I often find like time is a barrier when I'm having to learn something I don't understand why I need to learn, right? Because if you know your why and there's a drive there, there's a motivation to learn in the first place, no one's checking whether they've got time before they go on Google to search for something, right? They're
Yes.
doing it because there is a need that's driving them.
Yes.
And often, yeah, time is a constraint when I guess there's a lot of push learning and top down. But anyway, I can carry on going, Sarah, but we're going to go to our quick fire questions. I'm going to fire questions at you, and if you can give me a relatively quick answer. Are you ready? All right.
Yes.
How do you learn?
I think there are mainly two ways. The first one, I like to make a plan for the year. For me, what are the two topics that I want to address and what's the best way? So this is the very intentional part and usually requires more time and attention. And then I learn a lot from others, from being curious, from feedback, from recommendation. And sometimes it's just reading an article and then it sparks a desire for something more. And sometimes it's just, I learned from you this very cool ideas or approach, and that's it. Right. So, yeah.
What do you know now that you wish you knew at the start of your career?
That when you work into an organization, you are not only working for your learners. There are many other stakeholders in place. When I started, I said, I will design the best things for my learner. And then there was the business to say, no, wait a second. We have other priorities. So I guess that yes, even if it's learning and development, it's not only for the learners. There are other parts very much important, and you need to balance all your stakeholders. Yeah.
What's the book that you most recommend to colleagues and friends?
I think that is Radical Candor. By Kim Scott. Yeah. I truly believe in the power of feedback. I had the best moment from feedback that I received. So yeah, I think it's very powerful and recommended to everyone.
It's a great book. One thing you've learned from someone you've worked with?
I think that a big learning was at my time in this very structured bank. We were working with a lot of compliance training, very dry content. And what I learned from my manager at the time was that the more the content is dry, the more you need to be creative. It's not just because the content is dry that you need to drop, say, is this again? So creativity goes well, and it's very much needed when the content is very heavy or very dry.
Makes sense. What's your favorite productivity hack?
There are a couple of things. One is have some block time without notification, without emails. Usually in the morning, I'm an early bird, so I love this quiet time.
Right.
And the other one, I have to say, I love a list.
Right.
So yeah, a nice list or a nice small Kanban, love it.
So are you about the physical paper lists or digital lists? What's your way of lists?
So I started with the paper one. Yeah. And I still keeping track of small notes on paper. And then I discovered Trello. I've created my own small Kanban, and I'm moving pieces of projects and tasks.
I love it. Around. Being agile for life. What's something you've changed your mind about recently?
I think that this is something that I changed my mind, I guess, very recently, 2-3 weeks ago. I was having a conversation with a colleague about topic around leadership training and diversity, equity, and inclusion training. And I always felt that we needed to make it easy and accessible. And then I realized, no, there is complexity, and learning needs to be complex sometimes. We cannot reduce and make it always easy and digestible. Yeah. If a topic is complex, not unfortunately, you need to go through this complexity to really, really get it. So I think that, from now on, I will reduce the amount of time spending in making things more accessible and easy and digestible, because if they are complex, they need to be addressed. Like a complex topic requires times, energy, and question marks sometimes.
Yeah. What are you most proud of?
I think that I'm originally from Italy. I worked also in Poland. Now I'm in Germany. And I have very good friends that we started working together. So I think of the connection that I've made with people, and the network. And people, maybe we are not always in touch, but when we are in touch is always meaningful and with a purpose. So I think the connections with the people.
The last one for you, Sara. What's the one skill you would like to develop and why?
That's a very good one. I was very, very intrigued by the concept of be a futurist. I think that L&D sometimes is firefighting or it's working on strategic programs, but this idea to look even beyond strategic, looking really at what's coming next in 5 years, in 10 years, that would be a mindset that I would like to acquire and develop more.
Sara, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
A massive thank you to Sara for joining me on the show. It's such a fascinating topic to discuss, and I'm sure many of you listening will agree that empowering employees is one of the most rewarding aspects of L&D. If you enjoyed this episode, then please remember to subscribe or share the episode with a colleague, as it really helps us to grow. And as always, you can find contact details for myself and Sara below. See you next time.